Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of the Walk the Talk podcast. And on today's show, I am really excited about this one because I am talking to someone who has inspired me a lot actually in the last year or so since I read her book, The Gut Makeover. I am talking to Jeannette Hyde, nutritional therapist specialising in gut health. Jeannette works in London and kindly agreed to speak to me again for the second time for the podcast and talk to me a little bit about why we should be looking after our gut health, how we can actually get started with that. And we have just a little bit of a chat, really. This one is really important to me because, well, a few reasons actually, but the main one being that I used to suffer from really chronic irritable bowel syndrome and have had several relapses over the past few years, one of which has been more recently, a pretty bad one. And despite everything I tried in the past and all the solutions that the doctor gave me, nothing worked. And then sometimes something worked for a little while and then stopped working and then started working. And then there were foods that I could eat sometimes, but not other times. And it took me almost a decade to figure out what was going on. And I found Jeanette's book, The Gut Makeover, last April 2016, and went through the principles of the book and haven't really looked back. It was a changing point for me in my IBS journey, and I wanted to share this interview with you guys out there who might be struggling with your own issues with gut health. Now, by no means is this like a broad spectrum prescription for everyone out there, because as we know, if you have IBS, everybody is different, and what works for me might not work for you, and what works for you probably won't work for me. But there are loads and loads of really good tips and hints in this interview for you to pick up to build into your own life and give yourself a bit of freedom from IBS. And not just for you if you have IBS, but in general, we should be looking after our gut. So enjoy the interview with Jeannette, and I will speak to you next week. Okay, so I have Jeannette Hyde here with me today. Thank you very much, Jeannette, for joining me on the podcast today. How are you?
I'm good. Hello, Rachel. Lovely to speak again.
I know, it's been over a year since we last had a chat, so I thought get you to have a little chat with me again for the new podcast. So Jeannette is author of The Gut Makeover, and this is how I really found out how to fix my own gut last April 2016 it was. And then that's kind of like where it all started for me, and became a bit more fascinated with the gut and what role it has to play in our health. And I thought I wanted to speak to Jeannette again as the expert on the subject to tell me a little bit about what you do. Jeannette, if you don't mind, just for the new listeners.
Okay. Well, I'm a registered nutritional therapist. So what my job is to work with people to help improve their health using predominantly food and diet. There's a little bit of supplementation sometimes, but as you probably know from my approach, I really try to sort of get as far as I can with people just on the food alone, because I just think it's so powerful. And I sort of see people one-on-one here in London. I also run some gut makeover retreats, which are in Spain. And from time to time, I do some group work as well. I know you do that too, and that's a really lovely way to work as well. So that's what I do. And my approach is to target your gut health so that has this lovely knock-on impact on all the rest of your health. So everything from your weight to your immune system to the health of your skin and all the digestive symptoms themselves. Normally you can have an impact on them just all through food, and eating really deliciously, by the way, and not starving yourself and eating low fat, low calorie food. It's the complete opposite. And the lovely thing is that so many people, I mean, tens and thousands of people have now bought my book, enjoyed it, seen the results, and, you know, learned to eat in this way. It's quite innovative, and it's a new approach, but it's got lots of good science behind it as well.
I've certainly discovered a lot of foods that I didn't even realise that I liked since I did it.
Brilliant.
Yeah, loads. It's been great. So why are you so interested in the gut? What made you, what, in fact, let's go back even further than that. Let's talk about what made you get interested in becoming a nutritional therapist in the first place.
Well, I was originally a journalist, and I was in journalism for quite a few years, and I worked on national newspapers in London.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an extremely exciting, intoxicating profession to be in.
Mm-hmm.
It can also have a big impact on your health, and it's quite difficult to have a work-life balance and that those kind of jobs. But anyway, I thought I was invincible. I just went sort of like 110 miles an hour. I was running a family and doing sort of a very busy job, and I ended up having a burnout, and it was a bit of a shock to me. My body just stopped working one day. I literally woke up. My printer's about to start doing something in the corner. Sorry about that, the phantom printer. Anyway, I literally woke up one day and I just could not move. I couldn't move my neck, my shoulders. But I felt as if I had physically been in a car crash. It was just the most, and I went to doctors and consultants, and I went round and round and round in circles for 3 months or so. And, basically being told it was all in my head, and but it was literally that I couldn't sit, I couldn't stand, I couldn't turn, I couldn't drive a car, I couldn't lift a child, I couldn't sit at a desk, I couldn't even type. It was so debilitating. Wow. And it was probably, in retrospect, what people would call burnout or something. But it basically had this impact on me that I was like, oh my God, health is so fragile. Oh my God. I went into kind of that particular job that I had started 3 years earlier, and perfect 100% thriving health, and I walked out of there like I'd been in a car crash.
Yeah.
It just showed me that what you eat and your whole lifestyle can have such a massive impact on you. And so that's when I got really interested in health. I decided I didn't want to live continue in that profession anymore, and I became really, really interested in the whole sort of health and lifestyle thing. And that's when I started thinking, and I got myself better by literally starting just to cook proper food again. And, when I look back at what rubbish I used to eat when I was doing that busy job, was I just wasn't looking after myself. And I thought, I used to count calories because I was always managing my weight. And then I'd be eating, a croissant on the train platform, with a big latte or something, trying to wash it down. I wouldn't leave my desk to eat. I've just always been eating sandwiches at my desk. Lots of caffeine, loads of alcohol in the evenings, because every time I got home from work, of course, I was, I'll just have one glass of wine. It was always half a bottle because I was so stressed. Lots of biscuits at the desk in the afternoon, by the way, all the sugar stuff. And do you know what I mean? And there were no fresh fruit or vegetables. And, but when I sort of stepped back from that job, sort of doing it, took time out and started just to cook from scratch, just proper food all over again. I basically got better over the course of a year, and sort of going out in the sunshine, walking my son in his buggy and in the park, and seeing the light of day again. It all has such a massive impact on our health, and sometimes we just forget about that.
Did you realise at the time that it was your the lifestyle that you were living when you were in journalism and the food that you were eating? Did you realise that that's what was causing you to feel so well? And did you realise that it was the actual food you were eating that was making you better at the time? Or
well, I could feel when I started to, and I gave up that job and I stayed at home for a year. But it's still hard work looking after young children, by the way, but I was at least seeing the light of day. I was reconnecting with my family, and I was eating proper food from scratch. Fruit and vegetables came back into the diet. I was relaxing more. Did I realise? Yes, that it was as I was getting better just by doing those things. I realised it was this lifestyle thing that can be so toxic, and you actually do choose your lifestyle.
Yeah.
You do. It was I was very disappointed that, because I love journalism, that it came with that lifestyle. It was like at that time, and that was quite a long time ago, more than 10 years ago. At that time, people weren't talking about lifestyle so much, and talking about, and looking after their employees better as well. I mean, I have a lot of busy clients to work with now, but I do get more sense that they are getting more support at work now, which is really good. I think more employers are sort of cottoning on to the fact that, staff need to have good food choices when they walk into the canteen or on the trolley, or, there's a bit more awareness around all this, thank goodness.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would say even in the last year and a half, or however long it's been since we last had a chat, I would say even in that time, like, things have improved in a pretty big way when it comes to the workplace. Like, obviously I'm self-employed, but I have a lot of friends in the workplace, and they've mentioned that there's been quite a bit of changes. Like, one of my friends works for quite a big corporation, and she said that their canteen food has completely changed over the last 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's really nice to hear. It's really nice. What sort of patients or clients do you work with predominantly then? Is it all gut health that you work with?
It's a massive range, but yeah, I would say a lot of people come in, they've had IBS for years. Some of them had it for decades, or you've been through that whole thing of being labelled as IBS, but it's just that they can't see physically anything wrong with your gut, so you get told it's this IBS, but that something's not working quite right. But so there's a lot of IBS, chronic constipation, chronic loose stools, lots of people coming with inflammatory sort of skin conditions. So there's loads that we can do with the food. But the other interesting thing is that more recently I've started to see people coming along who are maybe in their 40s and their 50s, and they just walk through the door and they say, listen, there's nothing wrong with me yet. I really, really want to just make sure I'm doing all the best, most up-to-date stuff I can to support my health, so I'm going to sort of go through the next few years well. And again, there's lots that you can do to, just make some good changes, so that people sort of women go into things like the menopause better, and or men, who've started to get the sort of tie around the middle. They get into some good habits, and things get more balanced.
Tell me a little bit about before I ask you the big question that everyone is probably now wondering now, where do you start with improving your gut health? Why should we be doing this? Why should we be so concerned? What is it about the gut that is so important?
Okay, well, I'll just sort of reel back a little bit. The big news is that we all have this bacteria in our guts, and it's called the microbiome. And I would say, even sort of 10 years ago or so, the medical profession generally considered that this bacteria was of no interest to us whatsoever, benign, and was completely ignored. And then a whole ton of research came along, and the scientists discovered that this bacteria was far more powerful than anyone had ever suspected. So it's totally revolutionary in terms of the way that I think we're seeing health now, and we will see it throughout the rest of the 21st century. So we've got this bacteria, it's called the microbiome, and it goes all the way, along the digestive tract from the mouth to the anus, which is like one long tube if you think about it. But the biggest concentration of this bacteria is in the colon, so that's the last sort of chamber or department in that in the digestive system. And it's like you have on average, I think people have 1.5 kilos of this bacteria. It's like plentiful stuff. Yeah. And what's interesting is to have a healthy microbiome, it needs to be flourishing and it needs to be in balance. So in that bacteria, there are two things that you really want to see. You want to see lots and lots of diversity. So you want to see lots and lots and lots and lots of different types of bacteria in there. Because when there's lots of diversity, that's linked with good digestive health and also a strong immune system and, a good weight and, good blood sugar control and helps prevent diabetes. And anyway, I could go on. There's just like a whole load of things. But metabolism is controlled by this gut bacteria. So you want it nice and diverse. And the other thing you want in there is to have certain types of bacteria flourishing and blooming and in the majority, rather than, because we also have some bacteria in there they're nasty ones or sort of unfriendly ones, but you want the friendly ones to be kind of taking up the most amount of space, and these ones that are not very nice in the minority. And again, when the friendly ones are blooming, they have an impact on our weight. They modulate the immune system. They can even control our hormones. They have an impact on our mood and anxiety as well, because there's a nerve that goes from the brain to the colon. And basically when the gut bacteria is all happy, flourishing, diverse, it's sending kind of messages along the nerve up to the brain and helping to support your mental health as well.
That's fascinating.
Yes.
That is so interesting.
Yeah, but if you think about it, if you've got terrible bloating and gas or constipation or loose stools, you quite often feel in a really bad mood as well. And, and also people do tend to have a lot more anxiety. I know sometimes you've got the anxiety because you're kind of worrying about, oh my God, if I eat this, am I going to have to sort of find a loo really quick, or am I going to suddenly sort of feel massively uncomfortable in this clothes that I'm wearing or something. So
I've been there. I was that person.
Oh.
Still rears its ugly head every now and again, but not as much, thankfully. At least I know how to control it now when it does happen, so that's a bonus. So where do people start? Where would be the first port of call for someone that's sitting there listening to what you've just said, and everything is hitting home, and perhaps there's people are sitting there going, oh my God, that the person you've described there, the one that's the person who is stressed, busy, not sitting down to eat, doesn't have a clue about where to begin, but wants to maybe start to investigate the benefits of improving their gut health or improving the bacteria that's in their gut, or perhaps want to investigate how they could perhaps lose weight or control their weight with this approach. Where would somebody start?
Well, the reason I wrote my book was because, as I said, I did used to be a journalist, and part of the thing of being a journalist is you have to take really, really complex subjects and break them down so that they can be really easy to understand and read and put, and so that's what I tried to do with this subject. So if you are interested in it and you want something that's a light read, it's not going to, it's totally accessible.
Yeah, it's a great
could be a place to start. If you just wanted to, you're not even ready to start reading, the book and going into more detail, and going on a whole plan like I have put there. There's two things that I would recommend anybody to do, and the first one would be to start actually putting more vegetables, fruit and fresh herbs into your diet every day. So if you were like me, that stressed, busy person, having a croissant for breakfast and a coffee, eating sandwiches for lunch, and then having pesto and pasta for dinner with half a bottle of wine, as you'll see, there aren't actually lots and lots of different fruit and vegetables in there. So I think sometimes, even if you can't sort of start getting into masses of detail, like changing your breakfast totally, even let's say you can't do much about that croissant at the moment, you're not even ready to start doing some of the shakes like in my book and all that kind of thing, just start having a piece of fruit with breakfast as well. Do you know, it might just be eat a banana. A banana, because a banana contains these fibres called inulin, and that feeds lots of those good bacteria in your gut. So sometimes just a portable banana, or it may be And the other big thing that I talk about a lot, and I just think it's an easy win, is to, as long as you're not intolerant of casein or whey, and I do explain in the book how to establish that, would be to start having some kefir every day. You know, the fermented milk.
Yeah.
So fermented milk, you can buy it now, made of cow's milk, goat's milk. It's basically like a fizzy drinking yogurt.
Yeah, I love
and if
it.
you have a glass every morning, you basically parachute a ton of like 10 billion or so probiotic bacteria all the way down into your colon, because they have quite good survival if you take it as a drink. And therefore you are populating that colon with friendly bacteria. And that can have an impact on your metabolism and your mood and your skin and so on. And I would say to people, just don't count a calorie. It's absolutely pointless.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people jump to that, like if weight loss is their number one goal, they jump straight into just counting calories and completely negating the importance of the actual food that's going into your body, rather than seeing food as a number or a whatever it might be. Actually looking at a food and thinking, is this going to nourish my insides, or is it just a number?
Exactly. So you kind of think about food in a completely different way if you eat like this, because you're basically thinking, oh, what would my gut bacteria like to eat today?
Yeah.
And the thing is, if they're having sort of like a nice nourishing meal as well as you, then they are going to look after your weight and your immune system and your digestive health and your skin and everything else. And it has nothing to do with calories. And the problem with calorie counting, and I've seen it so many times over the years and been through it myself, is that there's this horrible, I've seen it with so many people, this horrible uncontrollable rebound weight gain that comes after you come off that diet.
Yes.
Yeah.
I batter on about that all the time.
Yeah, no, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of my main missions, or one of the main reasons why I started my business, was to almost create a hub for people to come to, where they can learn about sort of how to not go on a diet, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Or how to get away from that. Because like you say, the rebound from that, from calorie restricted diets is just unbelievable. So how long until you see improvements?
Okay, so let's say your microbiome, that's that gut bacteria, is completely out of balance, right? Let's say, and there's hardly any diversity in there because you're eating like the Western beige diet, as I used to do, and I just described, like, with the croissant, the sandwich, the pasta, and all that stuff, right? And there wasn't any fruit or vegetables in there. There was no fermented food, right? And then you start doing something like drinking your glass of kefir every single day for a month. Well, if you were to sort of do a stool sample at the beginning and the end of that month, you'd probably see the lactobacillus, which is this friendly bacteria, hopefully looking quite healthy and high at the end of that month. But so you say, so my plan is a month, but I think if you start doing that, for a couple of weeks with kefir every day, you hopefully start to see or feel benefits, with your digestive symptoms and stuff. I see that a lot of people, actually. I saw somebody today who had recently started having goat's milk kefir, and things were really shifting for her, So, yeah, I think within a couple of weeks. And the other thing is the diversity. You can actually start to see a difference in about a week or so. If you, let's say tomorrow, Rachel said, right, I'm going to start having blueberries in that kefir shake, in the blender every morning, and then the next day you put some frozen cranberries in there, and then the next day you were to put sort of half a banana, because you're trying to keep this variety thing going, and then the next day you say, I'll have some flax seeds in there, because they feed the good bacteria in the gut as well, and I'm going to put a half a peach in there. You see what I mean? And you did that for a week. Yeah, you should start to see some changes. you might say, I'm going to have frozen peas, and it doesn't matter if stuff's been frozen, by the way, it's still got the pigment colour, which feeds good bacteria in the gut, and it's still got all the fibre.
Yeah.
So things like green peas are great for feeding good bacteria. And actually, I've just mentioned blueberries, cranberries, and green peas. And you can buy those berries frozen, by the way. It's cheaper and also just more practical. It's quite refreshing.
Yeah.
And you can have them all year round when they're not in season. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, but you can put those in a shake in the morning, just stick them in a Nutri-Bullet and with your kefir or whatever. But you should start to see some differences in a particular bacteria, in that case called Akkermansia. Have you heard about Akkermansia?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm getting quite excited about that at the moment. Yeah, if anyone hasn't heard of it, it's basically a particular bacteria. When it's flourishing in the gut, you tend to see that somebody's weight is low or lower. And then when you see the Akkermansia bacteria is low, you tend to see that the weight's high. So basically, you want to whack into your gut lots of food to feed the Akkermansia, so it flourishes and your weight goes down.
Ah, that is a great tip. That is a great tip.
What I mean? And that could just be by whacking in frozen peas and frozen cranberries and frozen blueberries, and I can't remember all the other foods on my list, my Akkermansia list. But do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
You can start to see things shift, maybe.
Definitely.
I think definitely, you start doing it for a week and you're getting the new sort of habits in. I think the microbiome it's very malleable, and you can manipulate it quickly. I would say, though, within a week, it can start to change.
That's really interesting. Really interesting.
I think that frozen peas are going to go up in price. Find out about this.
I actually eat frozen peas all the time.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. So I'm just going to summarise here before we finish up a couple of things that you said there. So if someone wants to get started, you would recommend that they just start to increase the amount of fruit and vegetables that they have in their diet, and also to stress the importance of variety as well. So plenty of different variety, different colours, different types of fruit and vegetables. Try not to get stuck in a rut and have the same one all the time, because if you want to have a good diversity of bacteria in your gut, you need to have a good diversity of different fruits and vegetables, colours and types.
Exactly.
And also to consider having some kefir in the morning, which I have really been enjoying. And I honestly, if you had said to me this time last year that I would be drinking fermented milk in the morning, I would have been like, what? But I'm really, really enjoying it now. So those are the 3 things that you would recommend to start with, and I would completely agree with that. And you should start to see an improvement in the way that you feel within a couple of weeks. I definitely would agree with that. Yeah. Brilliant. Great. So the Gut Makeover book that you have written,
yes,
I would highly recommend anyone that is listening to this, if you do want to just learn the basics and read a book that is not full of jargon, that you can actually read. I think I read it in about a day, if that. And actually have a step-by-step plan to follow, then I would highly recommend it. I'm guessing you can get it on just the usual places like Amazon. And
it's in all the usual mainstream bookshops. It's on Amazon, Book People. There's if you look online, it's in lots of places. You can buy it, downloadable on Kindle, or you can buy the actual. There's a little recipe book I've done as well. Follow up with, there's more recipes in there than the first one.
Oh, cool.
And also if anyone who's listening in the United States or Canada, it was published there earlier this year as well, and it is about to be translated in Spanish and be in Spanish market early next year, and also in Russia.
Oh, that's random.
Yes. Yeah, interesting, isn't it? So the last thing I was going to say is people might ask, where can you buy kefir?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, so I was just going to say the brilliant thing that's happened since my book has come out. I mean, it's all been, evolving at the same time. Is more places are stocking it now, so you can. I'm in London, so I hope I'm not sounding too London centric.
That's all right.
Sainsbury's and Waitrose, they sell the organic type. If you go in Tesco, where I live, it tends to be the Polish type, because it's come from Eastern Europe. And you can order it on Ocado, and lots of good independent health food stores have it.
Yeah.
But if you really get into it, make your own, it's so much cheaper.
Yeah, I've just started making my own after all this time. I had a failed attempt last year, but I got some really good grades from someone else, and I've started making it myself. But I still buy it, like from Sainsbury's, every now and again, because I like the one that's like cherry flavour.
Oh yes, that's delicious.
Oh my God, it's so good, and it's so quick and easy, and you really can get it, in most supermarkets nowadays. So it's really cool. No, thanks very much, Jeannette, for taking the time out of your no doubt very busy schedule to have a chat with me today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. And my last thing is about the kefir. If people want to see how to make it, on my Instagram, I've got a few little videos on there. So that's Jeannette Hyde Nutrition is my Instagram account with 2 N's and 2 T's in it. And there's a Facebook support group as well called the Gut Makeover.
I'll make sure that I put all the links into the podcast notes as well, so that people can just go straight to the notes and click on the links.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Rachel.
Oh no, thank you very much for coming on and having a chat with me.
Yeah, it's been great.
Well, a massive thank you to Jeannette for joining me on the podcast today. I hope you've really enjoyed this episode as much as I have and learned loads about it. If you have enjoyed it, please don't forget to leave me a review on either iTunes or Stitcher. I'd really, really appreciate if you could do that for me. Also, get in touch with me if you have any questions. I'm going to do a question and answer show in the very near future. So if you do have any questions, just pop me an email to Rachel, RACHAEL, at walkthetalkfitness.co.uk. Put the subject as podcast questions and ask whatever you like, and I will be recording a Q and answer podcast in the very near future, in the next few weeks. Also, we are launching the brand new Transform 21 program mid-October to a brand new group. So if you would like to learn more about how to improve the health of your gut and how to improve the overall health of your body, lose weight and completely transform your life in just 3 weeks, don't miss out on a place on this month's Transform 21 group, and that is for everyone, male, female, young and old. Everybody can do it. It's all online, so you can do it from anywhere in the world. Just head on over to www.transform21.co.uk to find out more about that. I'll put the link in the show notes. And I will also link to all of Jeanette's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and also the link to buy her book, The Gut Makeover. I highly recommend that you read it, so go ahead and do that, and I will see you in next week's podcast.